JBS is pleased to present exclusive television coverage of KulturfestNYC, a series of Yiddish language programs performed throughout New York City, a production of the National Yiddish Theatre Folksbiene, as the Folksbiene celebrates its 100th anniversary. We hope you enjoy this JBS presentation of KulturfestNYC.
From the Museum of Jewish Heritage, a living memorial to the Holocaust in Battery Park at the very foot of Manhattan. I'm Mark Golub, coming to you tonight from a very, very special event, the concluding celebration of Kulturfest, an 8-day celebration of Yiddish culture, and tonight is dedicated to Theodor Bikel, and a new film about Theodor Bikel, who walks in the shoes of Sholem Aleichem. Theodor Bikel is here. Alda will be giving him a wonderful award. We want you to participate in this extraordinary evening. It seems like all of Jewish New York is here at the Museum of Jewish Heritage. Stay with us here for exclusive coverage on JBS of this extraordinary evening, the conclusion of Kulturfest 2015 in honor of Theodor Bikel.
I have many things to be grateful to Theo for, and one of them we can all be grateful for, and that's how he has kept Sholem Aleichem alive. When Arlene and I were first married, we had our first baby girl who would be asleep in the bedroom. We were in a tiny apartment in Cleveland where I was working as an actor. And Arlene would be stirring a pot of soup at the stove, and I'd be at the kitchen table reading to her from Sholem Aleichem. And that sustained us. There are generations, each new generation that gets born, that's a little more removed from any knowledge of anyone who knew what life on the shtetl was like. Sholem Aleichem brings that knowledge to them. Sholem Aleichem keeps that world alive in all its humor and in all its heartbreak. And Theo keeps Sholem Aleichem alive. Through the thousands of performances he's done as Tevye, through his records, through this film, this magnificent film. I have a more personal reason, too, to be grateful to Theo, and that's because of his magnificence as an actor. When I see an actor's performance that really moves me, that really captures truth and simplicity, I watch every word, I watch every pause. Sometimes in the pause you see whether there's truth or not. And I watch I watch Theo. I think they're the same person sometimes. I watch him. When I first saw this movie, I realized I was watching that for that same truth, that same sting of reality. Theo and I worked together in a play on Broadway 51 years ago. It was a musical called Cafe Crown. It was about the Yiddish theater on 2nd Avenue at a time long past. And like most plays, it got killed by the critics. We closed very soon. I think we closed during the intermission. But Theo was magnificent. I stood in the wings and I watched every word. I listened to every pause, and I watched that truth pour out of him. When on television, My Fair Lady comes across the screen, I always hope I'll be there to see those scenes that Theo plays so magnificently. he brings out the soul of that character just in the way he moves. He is the person he plays. And when I saw this wonderful film tonight for the first time, I thought, I'm still watching Theo to learn from him. And I wonder how he does it. And that's a hard question to answer. I think maybe Theo does it because he's able to bring his whole life to what he plays, his whole rich self. There's no technique that can replace the fullness of a life brought to a moment by an artist. And there's no award that can give back to an artist what Theo has so generously given to us. But even so, even though no award can give back at the same measure, it gives me so much pleasure. It makes me so happy to be able to present to my friend Theodor Bikel the National Yiddish Theatre Folksbiene Lifetime Achievement Award. Theo.
My Lord, thank you, dear friends. Thank you, dear Alan, for being here and for the spirited words, half of whom I couldn't hear backstage. But I'm sure you mentioned my modesty. I'm very grateful for this award. It so happens that this is the second time in the space of 1 week that I'm getting an award. These days, that's all I'm getting. So I can't pretend that I haven't gotten similar awards in the past, but I can assure you, all of you who are present here today, that this award will have a place of honor in a room in my house, which is called Plakistan. I am exceedingly grateful for the award, and I'd like to be able to call my director, John Lolas, to the stage. Or is he up here already? And he and I will chat with Eric Goldman and figure out what it was that we just saw on the screen and why. Thank you. Okay, center stage.
So I'm going to actually begin with John. What is a nice Greek boy like you making a movie like this?
Okay, who but Theodore Bikel would pick a Greek to do this movie? Right? Well, that just gives you an inkling of the kind of human being he is. It has been, for me, a remarkable experience. I've known Theo now for, I guess, 3.5 years. Mm-hmm. It seemed like 10. No, just kidding. It's just been a lot of wonderful, exhilarating hard work. But I'm very honored that we were able to do justice to this really wonderful human being. Yeah. And
there's a character in a play by Christopher Fry called "The Lady's Not for Burning." He's a monk, and at one point he's saying, "Well, all that is Greek to me, except of course that I understand Greek."
That's right. He does. He does. Much to my surprise.
Efcharisto parapoli.
Barakadabaye. I wish I had a Yiddish comeback.
So, Theo, in the 50s and 60s, for an American to come forward and sing not only Yiddish songs, but Israeli songs, did you have any concerns in terms of your career at the time, being stereotyped as the Jewish guy?
I never gave a damn. I'll have you know that when I was 25 years old, I told this afternoon to some friends. When I was 25 years old, I was in a play in London by Peter Ustinov, and I was invited to sing at Buckingham Palace, and this was the first, possibly the only time, that a Yiddish song was ever heard at Buckingham Palace. In fact, I got a phone call. It's an interesting story. A young actor at 9 o'clock in the morning, I get a phone call. This is Group Captain Peter Townsend speaking on behalf of Her Majesty the Queen Mother. I said, Peter Townsend? That's just a name in the news. He had an affair with Princess Margaret and this whole thing. I was convinced that this is Peter Ustinov playing a trick. So I said, who did you say this was? He says, it's Peter Townsend, Group Captain Peter Townsend. I said, why don't you go fuck yourself? And he said, no, I do get that reaction from time to time. But this really is Peter Townsend. I suddenly realized this was for real. And I said, oh my God, I'm not married yet, but I'll sign my firstborn over to you, if you like. He said, no, I'd like you to invite you to Buckingham Palace, where the Queen Mother will have a soiree, if you're free. So, tell them if you're not free, okay? So I went. The police parked my rinky-dink car for me, and I walked through all the corridors with the kings and queens of England looking down on me, and I said, "Do you always take people this way so they lose every shred of courage?" Coming to the white drawing room, it was lit by 200 candles. Princess Margaret bounces in, and she said, "Oh, you're here, good. Mommy and I came down here this morning and started hollering to find out if the acoustics were all right." Now, when you sing at Buckingham Palace at the age of 25, and you have the chutzpah to sing in Yiddish, that is the beginning of a glorious career.
Alan, is he always like this?
Would you like me? Should I sing in Yiddish now? Oy, Mama, bin ich verliebt.
Whoa!
I don't know. How many languages do you speak?
I speak 5 very well. I get by in a couple more, but I sing in 23 languages.
So when you sing in 23 languages, you mean you just know the words in that language that are in that song?
I do, but I'm making my business to understand everything that I sing, because if I don't understand it, they won't.
Right, right.
So, and because I have a facility with accents, people will not believe me when I tell them that I don't speak a certain language. I said, "No, you're Russian. You have to be Russian. I know that nobody can pronounce the way you do."
You know that wonderful moment when Groucho Marx was interviewing somebody on the quiz show, and the guy said, "I am proud to say that I can speak 7 languages." And Groucho said, "Which one are you speaking now?"
Yes.
But you never get that response. They
That's
think
right.
you're the real guy.
I'm speaking 7 languages, English the best. I used to be fond when George W. Bush was president of telling audiences that English was the 5th language that I learned, and I speak it better than the President of the United States. Now, let's talk a little bit about the film.
Please.
This is a labor of love for both of us, for John and myself. Something that I needed to do. I needed to tell people about me, about my life, about the origins of my love for the Yiddish language. For me, Yiddish is not Mameloshen, it's Tateloshen. My father spoke it. My mother spoke to me in German. My father spoke to me in Yiddish, as did my grandmother. On Tuesday nights, usually, don't ask me why Tuesday, after dinner, we would sit around the table and my father would read a short story, a monologue, sometimes part of a play in Yiddish by Sholem Aleichem. This accompanied me all my life. Later, when time came for me to play Tevye, the milkman, in Fiddler on the Roof, I'm very glad to see that Sheldon is here, Sheldon Harnick, wonderful lyricist of Fiddler on the Roof. He also happens to be a distant cousin of mine, and I must assure you there was no nepotism involved in my playing the role. Later, when I played Tevye in Fiddler, I was determined to not make this an act, but to play my own grandfather. My grandfather at one point gave up on God. He said God had abandoned his people. And he stopped davening, he stopped going to shul, stopped doing the things that Jews do 3 times a day. One fine day, the family walks into the living room, and here he is in a prayer shawl and phylacteries, davening. And they hadn't seen him do it in 2 years. And without breaking stride, he looks up and says, maybe this will help. You can't get more like Tevye than that. And I modeled my Tevye on that, and on that attitude toward life and living and toward his people. When you hear Yiddish, whether you understand it or not, whether you know it or not, you know you have to love the notion that Yiddish comes from the ground up, that it is spoken by people, for people, during a people's sojourn on this earth, in simple places, in places of poverty, in places of suffering very often, but in places of humor, as you heard from Belle Kaufman, Sholem Aleichem's granddaughter, who's in the film and who died at the age of 103 only last year. Belle Kaufman, interesting. She loved what I did, and she said so on certain stages. And I very rarely, I mean, during a lifetime, I've had some love declarations by young women, but never one who was 103. She and I went out to lunch once at the Russian tea room, and then she wrote me a note saying, "Thank you for sharing a herring."
Too muffled.
Yeah. So the elements that are in this film, Michael Weck's a great comic genius, from Canada with a memorable line that exile without quenching is tourism. This is a script that was written with a great deal of care and a great deal of love, and it is based upon a play that I did called Sholem Aleichem, Laughter Through Tears, that I used to do 8 times a week. As you can see now, I'm no longer able to do 8 shows a week. I'm old, but I'm not decrepit. I'm 91 years old, and somebody asked me at my birthday, what do you now have to look forward to? And I said, 92. Any other questions?
I think that's a good segue. Let's open it up to the audience and see if you have any questions for anyone up here. Yes?
I'd like you to tell that story, and it has to do with the signature song from The Sound of Music and the response of one of the Fraus who came to see that show in Vienna, your hometown.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we were trying out The Sound of Music, first in New Haven and then in Boston for many weeks, as we used to do in those days. And we were 11 days away from opening on Broadway. And Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein decided that there was something lacking in the score, and it had to do with my presence in the cast. We have a young leading man, got to utilize whatever it is that he knows how to do. So they retired to a hotel room at the Ritz-Carlton in Boston that had a piano in it, and they proceeded to write me a brand new old Austrian folk song. And they called it Edelweiss. And it was the last thing that Oscar Hammerstein ever put lyrics to. He was very ill and died shortly after he opened. And it's interesting to me, and possibly to anybody who is a little contemplative of the evanescence of life, is that the last word that this dying man wrote creatively was the word forever. That's the last word of the song. Then I sang the song 8 times a week for the next 2 years. I come out of the stage door one fine day, and the woman says, "Oh, I love that song, Edelweiss." Of course, I only know it in the original German. Very good question. How do you keep the language alive when it seems to be vanishing from the scene, correct? You do it by hook or by crook. I do it by crook. And I do it with a lot of love, with a lot of devotion, with a lot of dedication. I sing for older people to remind them where they came from, and I sing for young people to remind them where their ancestors came from. And I sing with respect. Respect is the bottom line of how you keep a language and a culture alive.
Alan Alda, John Lolos, and one of my great heroes, Theodor Bikel, thank you so, so much.
Thank you.
So at this extraordinary celebration of Kulturfest and celebrating the life and contribution both of Sholem Aleichem and of Theodor Bikel, I'm standing with Thane Rosenbaum. You've seen him many times here on JBS. Of course, he's the author of the new book, How Sweet It Is, story of 1972 in Miami. You just saw the movie. We can't show the movie yet. We'll show it sometime.
Good.
But still, for the audience that hasn't seen the movie but did see the talkback, what touched you especially about tonight, either from the movie or anything that you've seen so far? What touched your heart?
Well, I think most people thought that we were going to see a film about Sholem Aleichem. But in fact, we saw a film also about Theodor Bikel. And the fact that these two men of Yiddish letters and Yiddish music and two different generations had such an incredible impact on over a century of Jewish art. And it was very powerful to see the culmination, especially this night after a week of KulturFest. And it gives one a sense that even when the language fades, the culture somehow roars back with a vengeance. And, you know, it does give one a sense of hope. But, you know, it really did speak to the lost generation of assimilated Americans who believed that, you know, that Yiddish represented a dying world and an old culture. But look at those people. They ended up dedicating their lives eventually to preserving Yiddish. And I think that that's a very strong message. The ones that grew up in homes that said assimilate and Americanize ended up being the ones that preserved.
One of those is preserving Jewish life in our own time, Thane Rosenbaum. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Mark.
What an honor I have standing with somebody who I now consider a friend, Sheldon Harnick, of course, the outstanding Tony Award-winning lyricist for Fiddler on the Roof, which is going to have its, it will be revived on the 50th, virtually the 50th anniversary of its premiere back on Broadway. And you and I have met before. I've had the privilege of talking to you about your work and about Fiddler on the Roof. But here you are seeing a night honoring Sholem Aleichem and really Theodor Bikel.
Yeah.
What did it mean to you, Sheldon?
Well, for one thing, Theodore is my cousin, and I'm very proud of him. I think he's a remarkable man, and I didn't realize that he was as witty as he is. His speeches tonight were wonderful, but the film is very touching. The film is beautiful, and one of the bonuses was seeing Belle Kaufman. Belle became a friend through Fiddler, and we stayed in touch up until her very last year. She was an extraordinary woman. She was very witty. She wrote wonderful poetry, very funny poetry, and just a terrific woman. Yeah.
It's always wonderful. How are you doing, by the way? You look fabulous.
Theo and I are the same age. I'm 91.
Well, you're going strong to 120, and you and I will keep meeting at wonderful events. Fair enough?
Thank you so much,
Thank
Mark.
you.
Right.
Sheldon Harnick, love you. What a treat I have, as always. There's never a Folksbiene event that you don't see this woman, this bundle of energy and love, Dr. Ruth Westheimer. And so what did tonight mean to you? Did you enjoy it?
Did you see me?
Yes?
Did you see my clip? It was wonderful.
You were in the film, yes.
Of course. And actually the film happened because I was honored by the Zamir Choral, and that's how John Lolo's got to know Theo. Wonderful film, and I'm very happy. Look at the crowd.
When you watched the film, what touched your heart?
First of all, what touched my heart is that Theo Bikel, despite the fact that I'm a Yeke, I'm a German Jew, so I don't know Yiddish, but I understand it. What a wonderful role model. So this film, showing the tradition and how it survives, should go to all of the universities, especially the ones that have Yiddish departments now. And how fortunate we are. Look at that. How fortunate that there's a renaissance, that young people are interested not just in the language, but in the tradition, and to be proud Jews.
I love you so much, sweetheart. Dr. Ruth Westheimer. What a pleasure I have now, standing with the First Lady of the Yiddish Theater in Israel, Leah Koenig. And What does it mean to you tonight? You're here in America,
Yes.
seeing an extraordinary tribute, both to Shalom Aleichem and to Theodor Bikel.
Yes.
You have spent your life on the stage, giving to audiences everywhere you go. What does tonight mean to you as you watch tonight?
I mean, it's very important for me, first of all, that people remind this wonderful language, that I must be sincerely tell you that we lost it a bit. And it makes me very sad about it. Excuse me, my English is not the best.
It's perfect.
I will try to explain myself. And I'm very happy that there was such an initiative to do such a festival.
And enthusiasm, real enthusiasm.
It was, yes. It's not easy to make in New York such a thing because it's such a huge town. And I was very touched to be invited here because my parents, they were Jewish actors in Europe before the Second World War, and then after the Second World War, and I started my career properly in Yiddish. I'm born in Poland. My parents are from Poland, but after the war, we went to Romania, and I started there my career in Yiddish.
Amazing.
Yes, in Yiddish, and there was a Yiddish theater, and still is there. They were also invited to the festival. And then when I came to Israel, I started in Hebrew too, but I never left Yiddish.
Yes.
And if I have the chance, where I can, and where it's possible, and where I'm invited to speak in Yiddish, I do it because I love it.
Mazal tov.
We have such a heritage of wonderful writers.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's a pity that parents didn't speak
Yes.
enough with children
Yes,
Yiddish.
yes. By the way, Leah, we were told that in the early years in Israel, there was an attempt to create, the chalutzim mentality, which was we were going to put away everything having to do with Eastern Europe, Western Europe. That's gone. We don't want Yiddish. We don't want the shtetl. We want, Ivrit, not Yiddish. And so, how did this affect you, and how were you able to
I tell you,
transcend?
yes.
You understand the problem.
Of course. I tell you the truth. When I came to Israel, I was very bad impressed about this kind of attitude.
The mentality.
And it's the mentality, I think they did it very wrong.
Yes.
Because now we have a revival, and people are going, to conferences, Yiddish language, and they are so impressed.
In Israel.
In Israel. What a wonderful literature, what a wonderful thing. I was very, very, very bad impressed. And I didn't stop to speak Yiddish, even of this.
You come here tonight, we celebrate two things, Shalom Aleichem and Theodor Bikel.
Yes.
I want you to speak about what each of them mean to you. Begin with Shalom Aleichem. What Shalom Aleichem mean to you, Leah?
Shalom Aleichem means to me the Yiddish folk, the Yiddish folk. He knew us so good. He knew us so deep in us. The mentality, how do you say, what the Yiddish folk wants. His humor is, you have no outstanding, and it means for me, the Yiddish Leben.
Yiddish heart.
Yes, and Theodor Bikel, he did a wonderful job in his career. That he didn't stop to think and to express this love to Yiddish Sprache and to Yiddish literature.
I want you to, you know who Helen Hayes was in America?
Yes, of course, she was a big actress.
Yes, she was always called the first woman of the American stage. You're looking at here, imagine Helen Hayes in Israel, and you're seeing Leah Koenig right here. It is an honor to speak with you. I wish you Kultura Hatzlacha. We will follow you, and maybe other times I'll get to talk to you.
Okay,
Thank you, my darling. Toda rabba.
Thank you. Toda.
Leah Koenig. I don't want to embarrass this man, but I do want to say there are a number of legends here tonight. This is one of them. Eric Goldman has been involved in Jewish film in a leadership position for as long as I've been doing L'chaim, I guess almost 40 years, yes?
Oh, are we that old?
His own company is called Ergo. He's a teacher of film at Yeshiva University, and he's responsible for much of what happened tonight. By the way, what an exciting night, yes?
Oh, it was amazing.
Okay. We watched this film about Shalom Aleichem and also about Theodor Bikel. What touched you as you watched the film? What do you take away from it? And again, there were, for me, many moments when I almost teared up. What touched you, Eric?
I think what touched me was the fact that here was a man who was so much in love with being a Jew. And it was so special. And whether it's in Yiddish or in Hebrew, Theo was my hero for generation.
By the way.
He edits well.
No, you spoke for me up there when you introduced the movie. You introduced Theo Bikel. Yes, and I was so proud of you and grateful to you. You have the albums that were in my home, right? And you showed his album about the Soviet Jewry. I grew up learning the music of the Chalutzim by listening to Theodor Bikel sing it, right?
Absolutely.
It does, right?
In one moment, it's the Chalutzim.
Yes.
In the other moment, it's Yiddish classics.
Yes. And he has occupied such a unique position in Jewish culture and Jewish life. And by the way, you who are an expert in film, he has been in so many American classic films, feature films. So I want you to take one moment. How do you place Theodor Bikel as you look at him in historical perspective?
I place Theo not just in terms of the films he made, but what he did off the screen. Here was a man committed to social justice. He was actually on a board of mine to help young student filmmakers. He did work for Soviet Jewry. So we talk about the songs of the Chalutzim or of the Yiddish. I also had the songs of the Soviet refuseniks that Theo sang. He encompassed everything that's good about being a Jew.
And it's interesting, Eric, there are an awful lot of Jewish entertainers, Jewish performers, Jewish stars. Very few of them have the high profile in the Jewish world that Theo had. Speak to that for one moment.
Well, I asked Theo on stage, I said, you risked your career by doing all of these Jewish things. And you know what he said? I did it because I believed in it, and I don't give a damn.
Yes. And by the way, that was an honest statement on his part. He was who he was. So the other question I want you to speak to is, to what extent are you now, to what extent is there a tear? Because I felt at some point as the film came to a close, it was almost Theodor Bikel saying, I've had a wonderful run. I'm not afraid of death. Shalom Aleichem has helped me to this moment in time, and I don't know how long I'm going to be here. Now, we hope he goes to 120. He's in his 90s. He can still sing like he always sang. He's in a wheelchair. We don't know how long he's got, but something about tonight was also bittersweet for me. Did you feel that at all?
I watched Theo, and he's not the man he was 50 years ago. But when he opened his mouth and when he spoke, and later when he sang,
yeah.
he was
could go on forever, right?
He was a 25-year-old.
Absolutely. He said it exactly right. You also made an extraordinary moment of Yiddish culture come alive, and you've been associated with the Folksbiene for a long time. What's your fear about the future? What's your vision? And I say fear, that already betrays a certain attitude on my part. I worry for the future of the Yiddish language, for Yiddishkeit and Yiddish culture. Eric, where do you stand on this?
For years, we would drag our kids to the Yiddish theater, kicking, and they would make fun. Tonight, I brought our youngest child. She looked at me, she said, "Dad, why did it take me so long?" That's the future. We need to bring our children and our children's children. We need to keep Yiddish alive. It's so vibrant and it's so wonderful. You can't express Judaism in the same way.
You and I have known each other for 4 decades,
a delight.
and you have been fabulous. And what you did tonight and what you're doing for the Jewish world is out of this world. I need you on JBS all the time, Eric. Eric Goldman.
Thank you.
So I'm standing right now with a dynamo who gets so much credit for what her Folksbiene National Yiddish Theatre has done, and especially over the last 8 days in New York City, when it seemed, by the way, Brian, everywhere you went, anything you read, not only in the Jewish papers, in the American papers, was all about Kulturfest, a celebration of Yiddish. Brian, in some way, this isn't the end, by the way, but forgive me for saying it this way, it's almost as if you have taken another giant step, and this is a new yet greater beginning. So Mazal Tov. How does it feel as you look at we're at the culmination of this 8 days? What's it meant to you? How does it feel?
This is a special time, a special experience. It takes so many people to create, and so many thank yous from the young kids to the senior volunteers, to the musicians, to the artists, and to bring them all together tonight for the big celebration is a pleasure.
Okay. And what's it say to you about now the vibrancy of Yiddish culture as you and Zalman and Folksbiene have tried to once again resurrect it? What's it mean to you?
It gives us a tremendous hope for the next 100 years. The first 100 years we went through, and we had turbulent times and great times, but I have a lot of faith in the next 100 years because I believe in the next generation. I believe what the message that we have for that Yiddish and das Pintele Yid will last forever. As I had an opportunity to say in Central Park, we hear the music, we hear the songs, we may forget the words, but the nigun lives on.
And you're making it happen, my darling. Thank you on behalf of all those watching on JBS. Thank you. Brian Wasserman, who's really made so much of all of Jewish literature today possible. Thank you, my darling. What a great honor I have now. I'm standing with, in essence, the executive producer of both Kulturfest and the wonderful film we saw about Shalom Aleichem and Theodor Bikel walking in the shoes of Shalom Aleichem, Eli Hirschfeld.
Yes.
First of all, Mazal Tov.
Thank you.
And you spoke beautifully, but more than that, what you have done for the American Jewish community and for anybody who cares about the future of the Yiddish language and Yiddish culture and Yiddishkeit, Yotzei min haklal, as they say in Hebrew, just out of this world. So my first statement to you is Mazal Tov from all of us. I thank you so much for the contribution you've made by being involved in this project, by helping to fund this project, and for in some way shepherding it. So Mazal Tov, that's first of all.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So I watched the film. At the moment, the audience has not seen the film. They saw the talkback that Theodor Bikel gave, and they've been able to see some of the people who are here tonight. But they've heard about the film, and I was wondering, it moved me enormously. And I'm wondering whether anything in that film also touched you. Were there things that you heard or saw, either about Shalom Aleichem or about Theodor Bikel, that somehow you take with you and it will stay with you?
Oh yes, there were so many things that were given to me that I didn't know before that'll stay with me forever. For example, I didn't really understand that Yiddish had that important a place in the community at that time. I knew it was spoken widely, but I didn't realize how it was loved. I didn't realize its origin was from people who didn't necessarily reach the highest levels of those communities. So I was touched by that, and I was touched by Theo's. I call him Theo because he's a friend, in fact.
How do you know him?
We met several years ago, and he was kind enough to agree to perform at a birthday celebration that I made for myself in front of many people. So we connected and became dear friends. But there's so many dimensions to Theo, and I'm always learning a new dimension. And what I learned in this movie was the love that he had for that heritage. You know, I know him much through his great work in the secular world, The Sound of Music, the Newport Folk Festival that he founded, and movies with Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall and others. So I didn't know that he was so dedicated to the Yiddishkeit world, and that moved me.
It's interesting. I have had a chance to talk to some other people about this as well, Ellie, that there are many Jewish performers who distance themselves from the Jewish community, want to play down the fact. They don't want to emphasize the extent to which they're committed to Jewish life, and sometimes they're not committed to Jewish life. Theodor Bikel is the quintessential performer who made it on the American stage, in film, on Broadway, on the stage in general, television, and yet he has always maintained a very strong public Jewish persona and commitment to Jewish causes, to the struggle to save Soviet Jewry, to the state of Israel, and in some way, I mean, I get chills just telling you about him, and I've had the chance to, sit with him a number of times on L'chaim, but I'm not as close to him as you are, and for me, the public persona is what I experience, and then I get to sit with him and learn a little bit about his neshama. But the bottom line for me is he symbolizes what I wish so many other entertainers from the Jewish tradition represented, and that's sort of what you're saying as well, yes?
It's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, you're saying it better than I can say it, so thank you. But the point with Theo is that he's so capable in both worlds. So it's not so easy for someone else to, go the route that he has, because to be that capable is once in a lifetime. He's capable in the secular world, and he's so dedicated to the Hebrew Yiddish.
It's authentic for him.
It's authentic, natural, and in fact he says that having those roots and expressing them actually makes him a better man, better experienced, and better able to perform in all worlds.
Ellie, there was a tinge, just a tinge, of wistful, even sadness tonight, because you have a man in his 90s, and you have him in this film sort of saying, I worry about what my legacy is going to be, and we're talking about the death of Shalom Aleichem, and here we are talking about Theodor Bikel, what is at the end of a career. We hope he has many, many years more, but he's coming to the end of his career, and so there was a tinge of that, and I also wondered how you responded to that.
Only with tears, because the loss of Theo is a great loss for the whole world. Yeah. And, I think he's still got a lot to contribute, because his mind is able to speak and present as he did tonight so well. So there's more to come.
And he still sings.
And he sang tonight.
But wait, who in the world are you? What's your own Jewish involvement? Where did you come from?
I come from a little land called Israel.
Are you?
I was born in Israel.
You're a Sabra.
I'm a Sabra.
Okay.
I left when I was 9 months old. My mother and father, Abe and Zipporah Hirschfeld, left Israel in 1950 when I was 9 months and settled here. My father wanted to make a business, and he did. And I'm lucky to have both of them in my life, no longer, unfortunately.
And what part of the Jewish community do you affiliate with?
I'm affiliated with Park East Synagogue, with KJ Synagogue, and with the Spanish and Portuguese Synagogue.
Well, you're making a major contribution of your own. It's an honor to meet you. I hope I get other chances to speak with you, but for tonight, Mazal Tov, fabulous job.
And God bless Hashem should bless JBS and all that you do.
Thank
Mark.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So if you watch JBS all the time, you know there are a lot of people I have enormous respect for, regard for, and love. No one more than this guy here, Zalman Lotek, who's the artistic director of the Folksbiene National Yiddish Theatre. Everything you've seen tonight, everything you see in the world of Yiddish coming out of the Folksbiene and really Yiddish culture in America, the rebirth, the extent to which there has been a renaissance, is due to the enormous work of this man here and your mother of blessed memory, And Mazal Tov, what a fabulous, fabulous week. Zalman, you must be so happy and proud, yes?
I'm extremely excited that it's over. This mega event that we never imagined would take on the form that it did. Just kept growing and growing.
That's what I said to Brian. And what I said was, you couldn't go anywhere in New York.
Right.
And you saw it in the press, Jewish press, American press. Everybody was talking about it. You did it, and there was a time when no one thought it was possible. And you've seen the arc, Zalman, the arc. And I want you to talk about how that makes you feel now. And I said to Brian, this is just the start of a new chapter. But how do you feel now?
Very excited. We are really on the verge of something really exciting as we're sitting here at the Museum of Jewish Heritage, which is our new home. Thanks to the leadership of Bruce Ratner and David Marwell, they've invited us to finally have a home here. And we couldn't imagine a better shidduch as we begin our next 100 years. We're just totally very excited about it.
I am so happy for you and proud of you. Okay, what's it mean to be able to show a film about two legends, one historic and one still very much alive and kicking, Shalom Aleichem and Theodor Bikel? Take a moment, Zalman. Talk to me about what each of them mean to you.
Well, Shalom Aleichem, when we think about Shalom Aleichem, we think about the folk stories, the ability that he had to bring to life that world with its pathos, with its humor, in a way that no one else did, and that's why the team of Harnick and Bach and Joe Stein and Hal Prince and Jerry Robbins came up with with Fiddler on the Roof. And Theo, what was said this evening about us growing up on his records and him really...
You too?
Of course. Those early records, my son, the folk singer, those are the records that all of American Jewry listened to for the first time. So it's a great honor for us, and fitting that we should close our festival with honoring Theo on his 91st birthday.
Mazal Tov, Yotzei Min HaKlal.
Thank you.
You go from strength to strength. Kultura Hatzlacha. You should feel wonderful. You have made such a contribution to Jewish life, and I'm proud that you had us part of it.
Thank you.
Zalman Lotek.
Thank you to you.
So I'm sitting right now with the incomparable Theodor Bikel, and I just want to say something to you. You spoke beautifully. The film is out of this world. I just hope you understand, for my generation and the generation that follows me, and then the generations that are all to come, the contribution you have made, not only in your kindness to me personally, but the contribution you have made to the Jewish world and the world at large through the theater you have performed, the music you have done. It has enriched us in ways that now will be added to by this extraordinary film. And on behalf of everyone watching JBS right now, all I want to say to you, Theo Bikel, Toda Rabba, thank you. To 120, Mez Esrim, and I hope we have other times when it's quieter, you and I will sit together. But thank you, my friend. Thank you very, very much. Theodor Bikel.
Farewell, my friends, I'm off to who knows where. Made myself prepare that knapsack, even shaved my hair. Made myself a belt of leather, fastened with a trig. Said goodbye to all the neighbors I won't see again. Farewell, my friends, farewell, my friends, I'm off to who knows where. made myself a burlap knapsack, even shaved my hair. My last letter home is written, waiting to be mailed. I'll be far, far gone tomorrow when my ship has sailed. I gotta die. Seid gesund, morgen vor ich hoff, ob Schleugene Kasaken, ob Geschirr Korb, ob a Kuchen, schöner Garten, zugelegt zum Kate, unser schön mit alle Stellen, nur der Wand so schön. Seid gesund, morgen vor ich hoff, ob schöne Kasetten, ob gescherden Korb, ob er Heimat weggeschrieben, schön dem letzten Brief. Morgen will sein schön weit, weit, geht zu verschieden. Seid gesund, seid gesund.
Do it!
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS, the Jewish Broadcasting Service, with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the JBS homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to Jem, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.